War in Africa. War in the Middle East now. I know we don't know how the things are going. It look like it's peace and love with them at about, but still too much massacres are going across the world now. We don't know how the thing are going, but it look like too much bloodshed are going. Politicians in them schisms and grandeurs based upon the powerfulness what them want for them territories and control the neighborhoods around them conference and societies. So we know about the wars in Africa, bloodshed, too much coups in Africa, and it look like it not gonna stop anytime soon. Too much people get vexed based upon how the system treat them, and it don't seem the wars going to stop anytime soon, because there's so much power struggle between nations and governments in Africa. Terrorism take over, coups take over. I talk about Mali and Burkina Faso and Sudan, whole of African continent, West African, in a pure war, massacres and disturbances, small arms invade Africa, and it look like the youth say them can't get a blind. And them take up the guns on the streets and whole heap of bloodshed. And them government look upon the system here and really can't do nothing about it. That's so it go. No terrorists take over. No youth say them can't find a blind. And so them take up the gun. But you will know. We move now to the Middle East. And Russia invade Ukraine. And whole heap of people are say, is prayer with them pray now for Ukraine, based upon how Russia invade Ukraine. Hypocrites and hypocrites. Whole heap of people who say no, they have to pray for Ukraine. We say honor hypocrites and hypocrites. Long before, whole heap of invasions from the worst, and nobody talk about it. Whole heap of invasion and destruction against Africa. Nobody talk about say them have to pray for the African country that the West invade just some few years ago. The West continue to destruct the Middle East. And nobody talk about say them have to stop the missile and destruction of the Middle East. But no, Russia want to take over Ukraine. And they find superpowers that say them can't go so. And so them launch whole heap of sanctions, economical sanctions, and say if it's possible, it's military intervention, them go and send to Ukraine. But we have to go down the history and see what going. We have to go down in that history and see who is most justified in the commentary based upon what going in the Middle East. Now, the USSR, the Union Sovereign Socialist Republics, created or formed in the early 17th, having the capital in Moscow, Russia, where have no countries and independent states like the Ukraine and Georgia A man Wolipa country is now independent in the USSR. And for most of you who really don't follow the history, the USSR was the most biggest and largest continent upon the world, based upon all the countries will come under the USSR. Now, after the Cold War, it looked like where the USSR get dissolved somewhat. And you have member countries who feel say, boy, no, time for independence, and them want some independence out of the USSR. So, well, if the countries say, all right, no, if it's independence where you want, no, all right, no problem about that. So you can go along and create your own self-sovereign country. So you have one of the countries formerly under the USSR take over and form independent countries and sovereign countries. But guess what now? After the Cold War, you know, say, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, really, even after the Cold War, you know, say Germany is part of NATO. Now, NATO has about 30 countries under NATO, 30 countries under NATO. So after the Cold War, I know say the Cold War get influenced by Germany. And so after the Cold War, the West really continue to feel insecure. And look on the thing and say, boy, no. We have to form an organization that we can pool resources together, whether economic, material, or military resources, to protect and stage opposition. To protect and stage opposition to any country who we feel is threatening or will be a threat to all these member countries. So you have NATO formed around the 49 after the Cold War in 45, 1945-49 you talk about. But what is the rationale of these organizations called the NATO? And why are people not questioning how come we have so much respect and we continue to feel say NATO must operate? If after the Cold War we are all the world feel now secured after the Cold War based upon the lessons learned out of the Cold War, we don't need no more war. Why the formation of the NATO? Because the West feel that in the future things may not really go the way they want. And also to be seen as the supreme and superior countries in the world that no other country can really trouble them. And so them come together to form the NATO. And now, based upon the operations of the NATO, an attack on one member country is an attack on the 29 other member countries. Yeah or no? We don't tell you long before, say, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the NATO, has a membership of 30 countries. So now, an attack on one country is an attack on the remaining 29 countries. And they have to come together, mobilize resources, logistics, material, military, health, and so on and so forth, to stage a stiff opposition against the oppressor. So you have Germany, powerful countries. Germany the US, the UK, France, Italy, and so on and so forth. But now, what is the problem with the invasion of Russia, of Ukraine? What is the problem with the invasion of Ukraine? I will want tell the hypocrites and the hypocrites about the history of the aggressor, which is not Russia, but we're going to tell you who the aggressor is based upon historical antecedents of wars in the world. Now, the NATO country members and most unfortunately the countries who want the whole world to see them as the superior and the most powerful upon the earth is the US. And if you go back to history and look upon the wars in the world, US has been very influential in well upon the wars in Europe, in the Middle East, and in Africa. And nobody talk about it, Rasta. Nobody talk about it, Rasta. No, you want know. You know, say Cuba really not member of the NATO. But Cuba is closer to the US. Now, based upon international relations and based upon diplomacy, a sovereign country really has the right to say him want belong to a next organization or him really don't want belong to the organization. So you want to know. Cuba feels say boy no, them not want join NATO. And you have Russia who decide no if plant or have a base in a Cuba. You want to know. If Cuba really no business how Russia put up a base in a them country, Washington and the Pentagon say, boy, no, you can't put up a base in a Cuba because we can't trust honor. It's Russians them talk about. Them say them can't trust them, so they have to take off them base from Cuba. And the Russians say, all right, watch your man. We gone. We not set up no base in a Cuba. And we take off all we accoutrements and gone. But you want to know, the aggressor over the years in the wars where we see now, and nobody talk about it, including the Africans and ECOWAS and the AU. You want to know, US at the Pentagon at the White House invade Iraq and nobody talk about say them to pray for Iraq. The US invade Iran and nobody talk about say them have to pray for Iran. The US invade Afghanistan and nobody talk about say them have to pray for Afghanistan. The US invade Libya and kill Muammar Gaddafi and no African, no diplomatic African ambassador whatsoever. Ta said them standing with the Libyan people. US invade Libya, murder Gaddafi, and up to now still Libya can't find peace after US invasion. US invade Pakistan and nobody talk about say them have to pray for Pakistan. You see the hypocrites in the country and the continent. When the US or Pentagon at the White House invade any country, is liberation what them talk about. Liberation what them talk about. But when a different country invade a different country, is aggression and invasion. What kind of madness will we have now? pure hypocrites are going and attack. Where was the people who say we have to pray for Ukraine now? When the US invade Libya, just next neighbor, where the people gone? Where was the US? Where was the UK? Where was NATO when the US invade Libya? Nobody talk about it. Everyone gone dump because his US are invade his superpower. I invade Africa. And ECOWAS can't say nothing. AU can't say nothing. Them watch pan the US and the US kill Muammar Gaddafi. Like him. Ratted. I know when Russia invade Ukraine, go up on social media and people are saying, no, we are with you, Ukraine. Everyone say, I pray for Ukraine. And it's a shame to see Africans say, I pray for Ukraine and could not pray for Libya. When the US invade Libya. And no, still too much blood are gone in a Libya. Nobody talk about it, Rasta. Wolf in a sheep clothing. Propaganda. Hypocrites and hypocrites. Who always and will only dance to the PM master. Because Walipa African people take up donor funding from the US. So them can't say nothing if US is with Ukraine and not Russia. Who sanctioned US when the US invade Afghanistan? Who the blood clot sanctioned the US? Who sanctioned the US when US invade Libya? Tell me, Rasta. Who sanctioned the US? Who sanctioned the US when the US invade Iraq? Bless bombs for kill innocent people. Nobody sanctioned the US. And nobody, not even NATO, send military intervention or supplies to Iraq and Afghanistan. But it look like no. Most other countries really don't fear the US no more because it is proven that over 20 years of invasion of Afghanistan, the US failed abysmally, whether it's land or air or water military intervention, all of that failed. And the US packed them bag and baggage, left them armory and aircraft in Afghanistan, and run way back to the US. You must preach and practice what you preach. And you can't talk about peace and love. And when we look upon your actions, it's pure war. And the people who feel say Russia will back down is a big lie. Them no business the US and them no business the NATO. I will go and tell Ono Wagwan in the Middle East. It's not like we support the invasion in Ukraine. Rasta talk about peace and Rasta talk about love. And we can't support the actions of Russia. But he who comes for seek equity must come with a clean hands. And if you come to murder, and if you come to invasion, no country come closer to the US. No country come closer to the US in them invasion of sovereign countries all in the name of liberation. Who is the most aggressor than the US? Even when they don't business the US, still the US invade countries all in the name of liberation. Enough is enough from the US. And we tell Honor, Russia invasion of Ukraine is just the beginning. More to come. And when we hear Joe Biden and Boris Johnson I say, will it pass sanctions with them put upon Russia? It now go collapse the Russian economy. It now collapse Russian economy. If the sanction is about freezing assets of Russian banks in Washington and London, it don't really business the Russians, Because no, it's survival them at about and not assets what them at about. The mentality is not about assets, it's survival. But you wanna know. Who have to feel it? All of we have to feel it, man. All of we, the whole world have to feel all the sanctions that some NATO member countries put upon Russia. You wanna know. Russia produce Wolipa, is the second largest oil production, and it supply close to about 35% of natural gas to Europe. No, if Europe feels that them not take no gas and oil from Russia, they may have to rely on Venezuela, and Venezuela really don't agree with the West, and so we don't know how it going on. But you know, if the West or Europe feels a boy now, them not take no importation of oil and gas from Russia, China is a next door neighbor. China is a next door neighbor. And you know, sir, China is really not in the good books and really don't have a good collaboration with the US. North Korea really don't have that collaboration with the US. And you see every country that the US invade, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Pakistan, all of these countries will support Russia and will take the oil and the gas from Russia. China is important in the crisis in the Middle East. And China is very, very phenomenal in all the crises in the Middle East. And now if Europe decides that them not take no oil and them not take no gas from Russia, China will take up. And Africans will take up the oil and gas. Can you know why? The US really would not release them oil reserves to Europe based upon the crisis in the Middle East. The US will not release the oil reserves in them country to Europe because of the happenings in the Middle East. So, who go and feel the pain? Russia or Europe? No, this is the problem. You know, so Ukraine produce a lot of grains like wheat, and Ukraine and Russia produce wheat around some 30% or more. Ukraine produce Wolipa sugar, and then produce iron ore, coal, and manganese. No, if Europe will depend greatly on all these resources which has come under attack based upon the invasion of Russia, it would equally affect the economies of Europe. And so the question is, who will feel it? A whole heap of we go and feel it. And you will know, watch China closely. Watch China closely. No, say China really no member of the NATO. And no, the struggle is between the West and the East. And every member within the East Bloc will always, based upon them philosophy and ideology, protect the East Bloc. And everyone from the West will want to consolidate the gains of the West. Maybe the Third World War don't start already. And if NATO decides to send whole military support to Ukraine, you may find allies of Russia also supporting the Russian and the Russian government in the struggle. And in the end, it will escalate from Russia and Ukraine to the west and the east. And we want the people to watch Wagwan in the Middle East. What is good for the goose is more importantly good for the gander. And we say, the US lack the moral capacity and audacity to come say, Putin is an aggressor based upon the history of US invasion of the world, and nobody talk about Wagwan. This is Rastafari Ambassadors. My name is One Black Africa. Give thanks.